offering you information that is good about it.
Okay, not sure you can't say.
Okay, thank you for your continued engagement. This is the last session. You may be delighted or upset to hear. We are looking at the subject of the battle lines in the fight against financial secrecy. So this is not a research session. This is a chance to look forward to the next couple of weeks and the next couple of years, and thinking about the different areas in which things may or may not move in terms of global financial secrecy, depending on what the people and organisations in there do, and a great many other things, of course. We have a very strong panel. I'll be asking them to lift things up shortly. We're going to talk about different aspects of all of this. We would have had Steve Goodrich from Transparency International, but unfortunately he's had to pull out. But that makes it slightly easier to manage the time. So our panelists will have about 5 minutes each to talk about the following things. Dereje, who is, as I'm sure you know, is the chair of the Global Alliance for Tax Justice, will talk about, in particular, progress on a global tax body, where that stands after the Addis summit and where we go next. Which order am I going in? This one, apparently. Nick Matthijssen, who is in charge of Finance Uncovered, and we'll tell you what Finance Uncovered is, but also the where the frontiers are in this work in terms of journalism. Sol Pecciotto, who is the head of the BEPS monitoring group, will talk about BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting, and particularly transparency as it goes forward or falls to in that aspect. And Rosie Sharp from Global Witness, who has been leading a great deal of their work around beneficial ownership, will talk about that, which may be perhaps the most immediately pressing issue as the UK's anti-corruption summit looms upon us. If you are happy to go in that order, can I give you 5 minutes each? And if you go, okay. And then, and then we're going to open this up and get all of your thoughts, both suggestions for where things go next and ideas on what we should have done that we haven't already. Right.
Okay. In the run-up to the Addis Financial for Development Conference, it was in June last year. I was on a panel with Pascal Santamon, the tax boss at OECD. Me calling for as an outcome of the Addis conference that they agree on an intergovernmental UN-based tax body. And he said, and I was just saying, because the outcome of the OECD-based process will not be satisfactory for developing countries. And he said, I'm quoting, it's not a French proverb, it is an Asian proverb. And he said, a fool would look, when somebody shows him or her the moon, a fool would look at the hand and not at the moon. So implying that the OECD was taking us to heaven, and I was not ready to look at heaven. Actually, the interesting thing about Addis is the vehemence and arrogance with which rich countries blocked this part of the paragraph in the draft. They just said, we are not going to negotiate if this paragraph about the UN tax body is in the draft. It was not negotiated and voted out because they just said we are not going to talk about it. So the host country put the G77 under pressure to take it out. And okay, this is the first question. Why are they resisting this thing? One argument is to say, making it intergovernmental will politicize the issue. But it's not OECD an intergovernmental body. The second one is the emphasis now in terms of developing countries is to overcome or to enhance the capacity building so that they can tax. But as I referred to, I think this is just equally a paternalist attitude, just to say the least, saying they are not mature enough now to take care of their taxing rights. So, and for me as an activist, it gives me no option of campaigning or doing advocacy in the respective African countries for governments to do this and that. Or am I going to lobby African governments to send the revenue authorities to a training of OECD? If I were committing myself for the task of tax campaign in Africa on this thing, but what is happening now is that, if you remember, in the last communique the G77 said, we have not given up the issue of an intergovernmental tax body. That was their statement. And in the follow-up discussion, we were in New York 3 weeks ago or so. It has become so ridiculous, for example, that the UK and the US are even blocking for the UN Tax Committee to meet in the same city with the ECOSOC FFD follow-up group, just with the pretext that it will again politicize the issue. So, and then the other thing you might observe is OECD, the most frequently used word in OECD these days is on equal footing. They refused the participation of developing countries in the norm setting and law-making process, and now developing countries are invited to implement their rulings on an equal footing. So, actually, in a conference with so there, Mike Dunst was giving a presentation. The first sentence he used was, let's admit, governments both in the north and south are not ready to tax multinationals. And that was why he was trying to bring a compromise solution between the arm's length principle and the unitary taxation reform route. So, at any rate, why am I interested as a civil society activist that the whole process goes into the UN system? Because it is the only open process for civil society to engage with governments and push them to take measures which can, in the finances, lead us to any solution whatsoever. As it is now, in forums which exclude developing countries, in forums where it is being treated as a technical issue, I have no confidence that something will come out of it that will bring a solution to this problem. Especially the blocking tactic of the US and the UK. And it is not just, it comes down to this. I've read it, I've learned about it as the state doctrine in the US. What is good for General Motors is good for America. So it is not about multinationals cheating or dodging taxes. It's about the tacit, implicit and explicit support. I think I like the previous session where the role of the state itself in facilitating, tolerating, and encouraging tax dodging has been explained. The only way of overcoming this, both in the north and the south, is to have an open process in which civil society will have also a possibility of influencing. In which, it's not about saying the UN is the only thing and OECD is a bad institution. It is about claiming our rights as citizens to influence international processes in public interest. And this forum is only possible within the UN framework. And getting invitations behind the back door to be consulted is not a solution to that. The other thing is, maybe Saul will also come back to that. The allergy the OECD is showing, even to look at an alternative like unitary taxation, in any of its proposals, shows it is about changing forms and encouraging the practice to continue. So it's not, it's not I'm a fool that I cannot see the moon when somebody is showing me, but it's about my skepsis about rich countries club joining hands to solve global issues. I have seen it at the WTO, how America, the US was fighting to kill the Doha Round, and how victoriously they were celebrating when they, through bullying and everything else, when they got the decision to liberalize, to reduce tariffs to IT products. And this is the way it is working, and the only way to challenge such hegemonic and arrogant approach to multilateral solutions is to have an open forum where countries and civil countries can equally participate, and where civil society can also have a possibility of influencing the process and the outcome. Thank you.
Nick.
So I'm here to talk about journalism's place in the kind of pushing forward the tax justice agenda and where next for this movement. I mean, we should remember that journalism and journalists have been incredibly valuable in pushing this issue centre stage. I mean, if you think about the work of Nick Jackson and Treasure Island, Tom Bergen of Reuters, who put the Starbucks issue on the map, Jesse Drucker, who was talking about Apple, The Guardian, Richard Brooks at Private Eye, and then obviously the ICIJ just pushing this issue right to the front. The OECD actually referenced that when they started their BEPS process. They said that journalists were the prime movers in forcing this issue right to the mainstream of the policy debate. So that's where we're at. The question is, where are we going to go? Where is journalism going to go in all this? And before I answer that, I think it's worth thinking about this is the best of times and the worst of times in journalism, in the sense that the power of journalism now has been seen in a way that I don't think it has been for some decades. The fact that journalism is really looking for impact and alighting on issues of inequality, austerity, corruption, kleptocracy. There are alternative models proliferating, the ICIJ being the most obvious one, but we have the Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, smaller organisations like their correspondent in Holland, which raised €2 million in the space of a week through crowdfunding. Collective in Germany, in various African countries, there are small non-profits starting up. We have Premium Times in Nigeria doing superb work. All this is held together by organisations like the African Network for Investigative Centres of Reporting, not a very happy acronym or title, it's called ANSIR, run by Khadija Sharif. There's a similar organisation for the Arab world, ARIJ. They're all doing amazing work supporting journalism. The technology is there now to enable cross-border collaboration. Open data to a degree is helping that come through. And there's a personal eagerness and an entrepreneurialism about journalism that it's been, I guess, necessary given the destruction of the economic model. So that's beginning of the worst of times. Obviously, the sustainability of all this is really, really questionable. And for all of these smaller investigative units, to what extent they will be around in 3 to 5 years is very, very moot. Which then brings in issues about their reliance on foundations and philanthropists whose whims do change. So there is a problem about that. We should also think about the fact that at the moment there are more journalists in prison than there have been for decades, and there are more journalists who have been killed doing their job for decades. So these are incredibly challenging times. We're living in a time when there's a conspiracy effectively between governments and big business, which is locking down press freedom in a way, and the issues of privacy are also really rising up the agenda, and that's a strong rebuttal to the idea of beneficial ownership. It's probably the most potent argument to that, and to what extent there can be meaningful change and progress is moot. People say that if not now, when? I think I was at a breakfast meeting on day before yesterday. It was sponsored by Jersey Finance. It was a city breakfast, and they were insistent about the idea that policy should not be dictated to by the media and NGOs in the wake of the ICIJ Panama Papers. And they were saying that the Panama Papers was all about insinuation and allegation, and there was nothing more to it than that. And that is going to be the message going to policymakers, and these are the people who have the money to get their message most effectively sent. So one other issue I think is, in terms of the awareness, is making sure that journalists are skilled, and I do have a self-interested reason to say that, as far as Finance Uncovered, which is an organisation that was birthed by the Tax Justice Network 3 years ago. But we do train, we equip journalists with the skills and tools to investigate tax abuse, money laundering and corruption. And we trained 160 people from 60 other countries. 8 people on the ICIJ Panama Papers reporting team were trained by us. And skills, support, and technical backup is going to be very important in the future when it comes to this agenda. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, what I want to say is kind of complementary to that. I think journalists obviously play, and the media play a very important role in amplifying the message and acting as a megaphone. But what we've always stressed in TJN is it's important to get the message right, and that depends on deep understanding of the issues. That was the whole point of organising these conferences right from the beginning of TJN. And that's shown its worth, I think, in the last 15 years. A number of people, a number of those of us involved, Ronan Cowan, John Christensen and others had worked, for example, on the problem of tax avoidance, tax havens, the offshore system. I remember having a debate here, or not city, but in the conferences of Essex, around the nature of that system. You'll remember that. And some like Jason Sharma were characterising the campaigners as saying it's a problem of these poor little Cayman Islands with their palm fringed islands and so on. We had a debate and we said no, we identified the problem as being, and I think we formulated the terminology, the tax haven and offshore financial secrecy system. And out of that came a systematic effort to develop the Financial Secrecy Index, which takes a lot of research, takes a lot of work. And I think there we got the message out that it's a system which involves facilitators and involves an interaction between the onshore financial centres, the City of London, New York, Frankfurt, and these other jurisdictions. Now, if we haven't done that, I think, however good the journalists are, they always have a tendency to go after, and we even have a tendency to go after the Cayman Islands, the demonize the Cayman Islands, that's fine. But unless you have a clear idea of the message, then it doesn't matter how much the issue is on the front page of the newspaper. And this is also because a key issue, I think, is the technocratisation of the issues. If you want to say where I think the footpath lines are, it is precisely in the technocratisation of the issue. The area I've been working on most is this base erosion and profit shifting project. As a result of all the pressures and of the financial crisis, the G20 leaders finally did say, okay, we'll have to do something about it. They issued the St. Petersburg Declaration 2013 in very broad political terms. They said we must reform the tax system to ensure multinationals are taxed where economic activities occur and value is created. They handed the job over to the technical experts, the OECD, only with the OECD, and I agree with what Derek has said. But an important issue of why they I think shows the OECD is that that is seen as a technical context. They deal with it in a technical way. Technical means they deliberately depoliticize, but they also make it highly complex. So we formed a network of researchers and academics to try and track that process, and that's what we did for 2.5 years, and produced papers which have tried to, on the one hand, address, because the issues aren't simple, they are complex, they are made over complex by this process. So we've tried to issue comments on every one of the proposals, trying to explain on the one hand to campaigners what the issues are about, and on the other hand, injecting indigenous perspectives to the consultations, but also in a lot of ways because the technical experts, they actually can't see the wood for the trees. They go a step at a time. They can't see often the policy implications. You often find we've had to point those out too. Now, a very good example of that in relation to the current issue of transparency is that we were working on this. The benchmark process is still continuing, although they delivered the first pack last October. They've actually left some of the main issues over. They've left over the profit split method. They haven't dealt with the digital economy. You see countries now adopting their own measures in relation to Google and so on. Some very weak, like the UK. Others, India, now introducing a transaction tax. So there's a lot still going on in that area. And some of it is, they said, just technical details. One of them was a consultation which was finished about treaty benefits for non-collective investment vehicles. And one of our members of the Investment Monitoring Group offered to do the first comments on that. Circulated, I had a look at it. And I hadn't understood before what it was about. It was actually couched in totally technical terms. And it's actually about saying whether equity funds and private equity funds and hedge funds should be able to get treaty benefits in the country where they're resident. Now, a number of treaty of haven jurisdictions like Mauritius, Cayman Islands, and have started to negotiate tax treaties. This would give them the advantage of being able to then have often a place where equity funds and so on could get tax treaty benefits. Now we formulated a response to that, saying maybe that could be acceptable, but only on condition that the strict common reporting standards are applied to those entities. And that takes quite a lot of work. It's both technical work, but also kind of realising the policy implications, which is not an easy process. Now, I have an appeal, therefore, on the one hand, to campaigners. Campaigners, please devote a bit more time to understanding the issues, researching the issues. It's very easy to get sucked into the great media circuses. The last few weeks, Panama Papers, everyone. Sure, it's very important, but there are lots of people out there doing that. The amount of effort put into publicising as opposed to understanding the issues, I think, is disproportionate among campaigning groups. Whereas campaigning groups that have strength is where they put effort into understanding the issues, and you get credibility by being able to put forward clear, cogent arguments and understanding the issues. And that is, in my view, in the tax area, particularly substantive tax, because it is complex, but it's made more complex. But we need more research done in conjunction with campaigning. And on the other hand, obviously, academics, probably the people who are here, I don't have to say that to. But I think it is important for academics to be involved. And that doesn't mean that campaigners should become wonks. I mean, every time I write a blog for TJ, the tracks in there usually fiddles about with it and puts some stuff in and then says, I'm sorry, this is very wonky. It always starts early on by saying, this rather wonky blog, but you should read it. Okay, fine. But, you know, the campaigners should actually try and understand the issues. Equally, the academics bring something very different. The academics have a long-term view. The reason we hit the ground running in TJ was because Ronan had spent several years writing a book. I spent several years writing a book on international business tax. It takes a long time. You have to have a long perspective. You have a very different perspective as an academic. You weigh up issues. You test hypotheses. campaigners tend to look for evidence to prove their already established perspective. So they're two very different, but importantly complementary perspectives. And that's always been the purpose of these activities, these conferences. And I would appeal to us to really keep working, because it's not an easy process. And it's a process that is, I think, essential. And that, I think, is, for me, it's the battle line.
Thank you. So before anyone feels the urge to say that academics should also be more campaigny, we're going to take that as read, and we're not going to have this argument about who's in the right place. Complementary, seem the right word. We have slides even.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'll try not to be too campaigny and add some bit of evidence to what I'm saying, judge whether it's the evidence that I've picked. So I want to give you a brief overview of where we are in the battle for more transparency over who owns companies and trusts and foundations. You know, just that little tiny slice of where we are in the campaign against financial secrecy. So first, a little bit of evidence of where is the problem with secretly owned entities. And this is a study done by the World Bank where they looked at 200 plus cases of grand corruption, and they looked to see how that corruption was perpetrated. In 70% of the cases, it was perpetrated using an anonymously held company. In 15% it was an anonymously held trust. And this is where the companies were incorporated. So I think you can take from this that America, the biggest problem, the British Virgin Islands, closely coming in second. The ones that I pulled out and read there are all the UK's tax havens. If you add them together, they actually come out as bigger than the US. And the other thing I think you can take from this graph is the bit at the end, which is all the others. That's the long tail of a lot of other places are also problematic. And then if we look at what came out of the Panama Papers, as a number of people have said these past few days, half of the companies being incorporated by Monsanto were in the British Virgin Islands, obviously one of the UK's tax havens. I pulled out the UK's tax havens now because, as Alex was saying, that's where the battle is this week, next week, that David Cameron is hosting an anti-corruption summit. The pressure is on him to require the UK's tax havens to open up and to put company ownership information in the public domain, just as the UK has done. That's a power that the UK legally absolutely has. If the UK wanted to require change in the Crown dependencies and the overseas territories, the government can do it. It's a power that the UK has used a number of times before. For example, in 1991, the UK required the Caribbean territories to abolish the death penalty against the will of those places. And in 2000, the UK required those territories to decriminalise homosexuality, again against the will of those places. The world did not collapse, and the UK required those places to do that. But the UK tax havens are under a lot of pressure to do something. That they have made tiny little baby steps, quite a lot of little baby steps, but all of them very, very small. I've deliberately not gone into the details here, but if you're interested, then ask me. In summary, they add up to they're still going to keep the information private. We also know that the UK government has stood up in Parliament, a junior Foreign Office Minister, and said that they're not going to be requiring the tax havens to open up. They just aspire that they will do so sometime in the future. But I think the Panama Papers very much means that this is a topic that will remain on the table for some time to come. And so after that slightly depressing news, I wanted to give you a little bit more cause for optimism. So I wanted to look at what's happened in terms of company ownership transparency for some of the world's major economies. And I'm looking at major economies because they, if you can get change there, you can kind of create a sort of virtuous circle. Once one big economy says that they're going to make this information public, they become your biggest ally, and it's in their self-interest to drag all the other places up to their level. So here we look at, these are the places in the G20 that have promised to have a public register. That is the UK and Australia. These are the places that we know off record are probably going to have a public register. They vary from places that are definitely going to announce this to places that probably look like they're going to announce it.
UK, including its overseas territories.
In the G20, no, the UK hasn't. So the UK has
The three islands, not the.
Just mainland UK as a public register. The UK's tax havens absolutely do not, no way voluntarily going to do it, saying that. And then if we add in, these are the European countries that are required under the latest anti-money laundering directive to set up a central register of beneficial ownership to make it available to all EU law enforcement and tax inspectors and banks and law firms and accountants and to anyone else, anyone in the world who can demonstrate a legitimate interest. So that ought to mean me and you. And that's not a public register, but it's one step short. And we've reason to believe that there's an opportunity coming up to push the EU to go further on this. So following the terrorist attacks in Brussels and also following the Panama Papers, the European Commission wants to reopen up this already signed off, already agreed directive. And in particular, they want to strengthen what they're saying about company ownership transparency and about trusts transparency. And it's a pretty unheard of thing for the Commission to renegotiate something that all European member states have been trying to implement for the last year. So there's optimism there. And then if we look at FATF members, so FATF, the intergovernmental body that sets the global anti-money laundering standards, we see a similar thing. We see a number of countries that have already committed to public registers. That's the UK, Australia, Norway, and Netherlands. We see some that look like they're going to do so soon, and then we see a whole swathe of European countries. So what you've got there is more than half of FATF members that look like they're on board, trying to pull everyone else up to their same standards. And I think that's cause for some optimism. It's only a few years ago when that pie chart would have been totally white, and it would have been kind of unthinkable that you could have coloured in any of those little wedges. On the not so optimistic bit, there's still a whole load to fight for. So in particular, America, which we saw was one of the biggest problems, is not coloured in on any of those charts. Not only do they not publish any beneficial ownership information, in the overwhelming majority of states they don't even collect any information. There has been legislation stalled in Congress for a number of years that goes a teeny tiny way. It's called just this information to be collected, not for it to be made public. Even that hasn't been able to get out of the committee stage. So one of the big battle lines that we have going forward is to get America to come on board. The other big challenge is to do something about transparency around trusts. Everything I've been talking about so far just relates to companies. Obviously, if you begin to open up companies, then the obvious thing that you can do is start this. But of course, there's a very easy other mechanism you can have to hide your money. There's also a challenge, which Murphy alluded to it the other day, about making sure that the information in any public registry is meaningful, making sure that it actually is the person who controls and owns this company. And that means being some mechanism to verify and check the information. And that's difficult, politically, because making information public is cheap to do, whereas verifying it requires a whole lot of people and intelligence and is an expensive thing to do. But I want to leave you at the kind of the end talk at the end of the 2 days conference, at the end of the week, with the kind of positive message that we're getting somewhere on this, and that the journalism and the research and the campaigning that's going into this is having an effect. Thank you.
Thank you all. Really very interesting stuff. I have a couple of quick thoughts, but then I really want to get the mic going across here. Maybe we will run over until 4:30, if that works. The next time Pascal tells that story, you tell him you're not staring at his hand. He's not pointing at the moon. He's pointing at a reflection in the window, and you're wondering what he's doing. You know, the OECD may think they have a moon, but the other thing that struck me from this, Nick, you mentioned Jersey Finance having a lot of money, and there certainly is going to be, I think, a very powerful pushback coming on this. One of the sad things in that, you know, Jersey Finance's pushback involves Jason Sharman, who, as Sol mentioned, was in an early meeting here. The Telegraph ran a piece yesterday with quoting Jason Sharman in order to question the value of the UK's public register, which is Jersey's way of defending itself from the pressure that it might need to do the same. Money talks. Equally, on, you know, although the framing of
He
this...
was at our breakfast, by the way. He was at
Right, I assumed that was, you know, the framing of this event, and indeed the anti-corruption summit coming, is a triumph in that it recognises corruption as being stemming from financial secrecy, not being a low-income country problem or an African problem. On the other hand, you know, the UK has just announced it's stopping aid to Mozambique because of the secret debt that Mozambique had created. As far as we know, there are no plans to take any measures against any of the UK territories involved in the creation and hiding of that debt. We're still treating corruption one way. All right, look, let's get a set of hands and kind of start hearing from people. Perhaps particularly people we haven't heard from yet. Options. Liz, because we haven't got anything from Liz. From the norms.
Yes, I just wondered, well, for anyone, maybe Rosie, what you thought the way forward is on trusts in terms of really pushing it.
One radio expert, what do you think of the World Tax Platform that IMF and World Bank and UN announced the other day? Plenty of reasons for cynicism, but any reasons for optimism in that too?
Yeah, Ceylon Elizabeth, Islamic journalist. I just want to comment on what you were saying about journalists and academics. In a way, it doesn't need to be, you know, either very wonkish, very expert-like, or very generalized. Saying this as a journalist, I mean, I think it's incredibly important to know in detail what you're writing about. Then you don't need to write about the details. You have to know about them in order to be able to simplify things and explain them. And then actually, I have had excellent contacts with academics and others who have the time and energy to explain to me the details so that I can, you know, be the master of them, at least for long enough to write about it. So that was just my quick thoughts about what you were saying.
How can we criminalize the role of professional accountants, lawyers, and bankers in tax laws?
You want to talk from another?
Yeah, so on trusts, Liz, I mean, the short answer is I don't know, but let me throw out an idea that we were discussing just yesterday and see if, you know, you're the right people to bounce the idea off. The issue with trusts is that you know, that there are three parties. There's the settler who put in the money, the assets. There's the trustee who manages them, and then there's some beneficiaries who may or may not be named, who sometime in the future are going to get hold of these assets. The overwhelming majority of trusts in the world are made under the laws of England and Wales, but lots of them don't even touch. You know, the settler, the trustees, the beneficiaries might not be British, might not be resident here, and lots of the difficulty of it comes from the fact that the UK government is very much sees that there are privacy issues around trusts that don't exist so much around companies, particularly around the beneficiaries. So you could, for example, you could make a will and via a trust, and the beneficiaries are the people you're going to give your stuff to when you're dead. Do you want those beneficiaries to be out in the public domain while you're still living? You can have a trust that's set up to care for your disabled child. Is that other people's business to know those things? At the same time, of course, you have trusts that are a perfect secrecy vehicle for hiding assets. And when I said that from the study by the World Bank, that 70% of these cases were done by companies, only 15 by trusts. That may well argue that at the moment companies are more important, but the alternative explanation is that trusts are actually so secretive that the 15% is a vast it isn't the true figure. Because this was cases that were actually solved by law enforcement, and the ones involving trusts, well, those are the ones who weren't solved. The compromise that I'm putting out, just to hear if there's any response from any of you, is that to follow essentially what the UK is going to do in its public register. So if you have a company, and trusts don't require any transparency in the UK register, but if you have a company that is owned by a trust, you have to have some transparency around that, the trust at the top of the chain. And what will be required is for the names of the trustees to be made public, and for the names of anyone who holds any control over significant activities of the trust. You know, for example, if they can direct where the money gets invested. And that means that settlers with any control over the trust will also have to be named. What's not in the list is the beneficiaries. So one idea might, as a compromise, where we might get some way forward, we suggest something like that. And one of the things that the UK government has been concerned about is how they would, how they can make this happen. You know, if you've got loads of trusts that are set up under English law, but no one's even in England, they're not even British passport holders, how can you make them do this? And so one idea here would be to deny the use of the UK courts unless your trust had been transparent around its beneficial owners. In that, you know, how many trusts actually end up using the UK courts? Not so many. But if you're going to set up a trust and say that, you know, there's ever any disputes, we want to be able to use the English courts to solve this. Perhaps that's a mechanism that can be used to make trusts comply. I also have something to say on how do we criminalise the professional neighbours and stuff, but maybe I should let somebody go and come back to me.
When I start by adding a wonkish comment to that, I'd say not deny the use of the British courts, but say that the trust isn't enforceable in the UK. But anyway, I wanted to come back on this point about, I mean, the good journalists, there are rather few intelligent journalists, do want to understand. The vast bulk of me, are looking for a sensational story. And there's always that pull, I think, even any journalist is always looking for something that will attract the reader's attention. So there's always that obstacle. In principle, they might like to understand what's behind it. But the vast bulk of them want something that will appeal to read, basically. That's the pull of the reader. And that's a problem. That's one important problem. And even someone like Richard Brooks, I find, is very good at the sensation story, he's not particularly interested in the next stage, which is really understanding the policy implications, and then the third stage is really then being willing to even put forward our rather more radical policy alternatives. Usually we're criticised.
That's not his job, though. He's not there to write policy.
No, but to give some publicity to our alternatives. The big problem we have, and this comes to Atol's question, I don't know if you necessarily need to criminalise. The problem is that all of these people, all of these big four and the rest of them, they are part of an establishment view of what is legitimate and acceptable and okay. And we're trying to develop a critique of that and to put some alternative perspectives, which generally have large public support. It's not a problem to get large public support around greater transparency particularly, but even to get around the simple idea of multinational tax, they actually have activities. But then when it comes to say, well, how should that be done, we often have to put forward policy proposals which are unorthodox from the point of view of the big four and the hundreds of people who have been invested in these methods of ensuring that doesn't happen. And that is very, very difficult at many levels. And one of the levels is getting journalists who will at least, it may not be their job to advocate it, but at least report it. To even say it, it's very, very difficult. I mean, I'll give you at least several examples. The one obviously close to our heart is we debated a long time within teachers. It's a better approach, and we've advocated taxing multinationals on a unitary basis. The basic problem with international tax is that it treats these complex organisms as if they were made up of really independent entities, which encourages multinationals to have these complex structures. And academics have developed the alternative approaches of unitary taxation. But to get an airing for that perspective has been extremely difficult. Some of the journalists have. Matthew Burns, who was here yesterday, and a few of the others are willing to take these issues on board and at least give them credence. But we tend to be delegitimized in a number of ways. And from the academic angle, it's not easy because if you do it, first of all, if you do unorthodox work and do it with campaigning organisations, although we're always being encouraged to have user impact and engagement, that means working for business. I mean, if an academic had a consultancy with PwC or with Google or whatever, fine, you put it on your CV, no problem. If you work with Tax Justice Network, that's impact. What happens to you? You don't get any kudos for that. And in fact, we now have this proposal, I gather from the Cabinet Office, that if you're in receipt of public funding, they're going to prohibit you from advocating policy positions. I mean, I can give you other examples. I've been working for the last few years with the International Centre for Tax and Development, and they were quite receptive and helped us, funded a research program on unitary tax, which included some people in this room. But there was a civil servant. It's coming from Treasury too, and this is confidential.
This has been live streamed.
It's coming from Treasury too, to DFID funded the ICTD, and he kept raising the question, why are you involved in campaigning? And this was because we had Richard Murphy and Alex here and me working on this research project. They wanted to delegitimize it, and they came to the end of its funding, ICTD, and DFID said, we'll fund you for another 18 months, but not for international tax research. You know, it's because that's not you know, you can't criminalise that civil servant, but it's because that's delegitimized.
Sorry, let me give Nick a word before he disappears.
Sorry, I apologise, I have to go to the airport, so it's great to see everybody and thanks for all your time. I can't let these comments drop, so I should say, Solviews he is a senior advisor to Tax Justice Network, they're not the Tax Justice Network. Journalists, we're not just megaphones for the real work that academics are doing. We go out, we
I haven't said that. I have not said that they're doing. I said they were complimentary, Nick.
Yeah,
just
we absolutely agree on that. I just
fine. Well, then
found it a little bit.
Well, I'm glad I got under your skin.
Yeah. Well, I make no apologies for calling your contributions wanted, which I find them very valuable contributions, but I do think there is a role for communicating these in a way that people who want.
Why do you think that worked, Bishop?
Anyway, but we do appreciate your contributions, so we really do. I think we do have a disagreement on, really, at the end of the day, what's style over substance. But at the end of the day, they are complementary, and both very important goals. But I'm going to thank you.
At which point I'm going to pass it over to Derek to talk about something completely different.
I will come to the to what Paul said about campaigning and the sophistication of task rules. I totally agree they are complicated, but there are very obvious things which I cannot explain as a training course. For example, why is Panama, Liberia, and Marshall Islands have the biggest commercial fleet in the world? This is not complicated, and my task is about exposing what is behind the structure. So in that sense, it is not complicated. To your question, I'm always worried about measures which are undertaken have solutions to make a UN, an intergovernmental tax body superfluous. All these organizations that are now claiming to come together will not legitimize a process which is intergovernmental, which has to reform, which is mandated to reform international traffic. My model is the climate agreement in the process it took. We had a possibility to influence the position of our respective governments as part of a global climate justice movement. We have the possibility of influencing the final outcome. That is also the solution I envisage for the tax issue. But if you look at it and read between the lines, it again comes back to developing tools to trade. So, as I referred to yesterday, solving tax issues globally is a political issue, it is not a technical issue. So in that sense, it might be good to coordinate for them the capacity building they do, but it is not an exact solution to what we are requiring. But if you look at it, it's about developing common toolkits, and it is about disclaiming that tax is a political issue that can be and should be solved in the political process.
I'll just very quickly say, hands up, but when it comes to the academic journalism dispute, I mean, I think you've got to remember that most journalists are churning stuff out and they haven't got necessarily the time. They're under immense time pressure, immense productivity pressures, so the amount of thought they can give to an individual subject at a given time is obviously limited. There are a few journalists who have the luxury of taking their time about stuff, but you've got to remember that the detail can be very, very tricky and convoluted. And Felicity Lawrence, who wrote, who's been probably the first ever transfer pricing story in a national newspaper, her way of approaching, which I think is a very good one, is like, as the Islamic journalist lady was saying, is in a sense is like absorb all the detail and then just throw it away and just write the story, and that's what you have to do, because people want to know whose fault is it, what is the story, and what can be done about it, and that's the messages that people have to kind of take on board. And if you're trying to get unitary taxation onto the agenda, well, you just have to try harder and make better messages in order for people to kind of like accept and endorse them, and then go with it. And finally, on what can be done to criminalise the practitioners, the makers. I'm no legal expert, but there's a BDI lawyer, some of you may know, called Martin Kenny, who goes around investigating and prosecuting perpetrators of grand corruption, and I think he's got quite an interesting take on this in the sense that he advocates the duty of care has to be implemented or embedded into accountants and lawyers' DNA as they go about their business, and it's the duty of care that could be the way in which people can be prosecuted. They should not have taken care over certain activities, and that might be quite an interesting way of approaching.
Can I just add a bit on the criminalising professional labels of corruption? And see John Christensen probably wants to tell me that we should have more transparency over persons. One of the problems I think about pinning blame on an individual accountant or a lawyer or banker when the institution has been shown to be laundering money is it's all too easy for the individual at the moment to say, it wasn't me, it was somehow this whole company did it, but you can't quite pin it on me because no one's got the email that says, I think you should launder the money, go ahead. And one of the things that Global Witness is calling for is for it to be easier to hold senior members of law firms, banks, accountancy firms to account by saying that there should be one person or group of very senior people who, if something goes wrong, they're the ones to blame. Like they're automatically responsible for ensuring that the organisation has good systems. If that makes sense.
There are more burning points than I thought. I am not going to come back to the panel, thank you. I'm going to take the last set of points from this little group here and then wrap up.
I just wanted to pick up on a couple of Nick's points. First of all, on privacy. I do think the dangers of what's happening to the surveillance laws in this country should not be underestimated, with journalists and lawyers and all sorts of people in danger of their confidential contacts being tapped into. It's already been done, and there's nothing to stop it in any of the surveillance laws going through at the moment, as far as I can see. And that means that in terms of whistleblowers, who actually we owe a lot to for everything we've had to help us so far, are going to be far more reluctant, understandably, to help, let alone the fact that they're the only ones in jail. We're talking about criminality. And so I don't think that any of this should be underestimated in terms of where we go from here. Any thoughts anybody's got on that, I think would be most welcome to those of us who are trying to get information out. And just to say to Sol, as a journalist, all my life, I have, except when I'm freelance, even then, had to be subject to what editors and others want to do with my information. So it doesn't matter how many years I've researched a topic and what I write. I have very little control over what ends up being published, which is why I had to set up my own website. And the other thing I would say was what Nick said about precarious good journalism. I think we're in a very difficult part of the world at the moment of journalism, where people have to crowdfund and bid to get their stories covered so that they can publish somewhere. And we really do need something a bit more stable than that to get anywhere near the kind of journalism that we would like to see.
Jan Timuri, Aston University. A very general question. We talked about the loss on government revenue and human rights and so on. I'm just wondering what the effect of taxation is on firm performance. Not necessarily profitability, which probably goes, through the roof on the balance sheet, but things which are more sustainable, things like productivity, innovation, R&D expenditure. Are we having a double negative or more negative impact on the economy? One, on government expenditure, but also that productivity is low, and by cleaning up the acts, productivity would increase, innovation expenditure on R&D, and these things would benefit as well. I'm just wondering if there's research on that aspect of firm performance.
Thank you. I just want to get back to some of the original bits of the debate. We talked a lot about transparency. As far as I'm concerned, it's called transparency. I don't know what it looks like, but all I know is that it's something which is never ever made, and always in the process of being made. And what certainly the government is talking about does not fit my definition of transparency. For example, they're talking about disclosing the identities of individuals who own more than 25% of shares. That, to my mind, is not transparency in any way whatsoever. Then on top of that, they say whether there is a company which is 100% owned by somebody else, you don't need to disclose the detail who's behind that. That is the basis of related party transaction and all the profit shifting. So recently looking
at BHS. BHS's shares were ultimately held by a company in Jersey called Tavita Investments No. 2 Limited. Who's behind that? I have absolutely no idea. I've investigated for TV programs many a company over the years, never ever found out, and often things like somebody owns 100%. You don't find out. And government is not proposing to abolish nominee shareholdings, not proposing to abolish nominee directors, and the biggest problem we have is that for so-called public companies as defined by the Companies Act, you must have 2 directors, one of which could be a limited liability company registered in Cayman, Bahamas. They don't need to know anything. So I'm really puzzled by why civil society is welcoming government proposals at all. Because it seems to be a lot of rhetoric about transparency, but when I look at it, I see zero substance.
On that cheery note.
I'm always careful, I'm an academic.
But I would go back to panel, apologies, because we're going to wrap up. I want to give a set of votes of thanks, and then I will ask John to say one final word. I want to thank Prem and Alba for their support of this year on year, and Ronan and City Perk for the support of this organisation, Giovanni for having done absolutely everything. All the Task Justice Network team and all of the participants, speakers, presenters, Naomi, who has managed to make the live streaming actually work, remarkably. And finally, our panel and yourselves. Thank you very much.
And of course, Alex, who put together our program, which I think we will all accept was remarkable. And you, because you contributed to a remarkable program. I do think that we have transformed between us, and it's been a great privilege working with all of you. We have transformed the debate on corruption. Sorry, Mike. We have transformed. It's not.
The battery's gone on.
We transformed the debate on corruption, and bravo for that. I'm heading for a sabbatical now. I'm coming back to work on what I've always wanted to work on, which is the corruption of the idea of national competition. It's the most corrupting thing of all. It corrupts language, democracy, the whole damn lot. So I'm really looking forward to that. I do want to say a couple of words about, this is not a row between campaigners, journalists and academics. Actually, this community here, which is a fusion of the lot, is a sign of the success. I think that, as Sol said, from word go, we've taken as much solid academic research as we could find, as we could lay our hands on. We've encouraged it because I think that is the bedrock on which we've built a successful movement. And long may that remain the case. As Nick Mathiasen and the journalist said, I've worked with enough journalists now for long enough, and I'm currently just tying up, I've had to sign off on a documentary just now. Everything is so rigorously checked, and every single full stop and colon is taken up and polished down by lawyers. It's an astonishing amount of work that goes into high-class journalism. And I agree the point that you made just a few seconds ago, Adrian. It's as much as anything else, it's the editors who do stand in the way. But I spent 3.5 hours yesterday with a journalist talking through why unitary taxation is so important. Might be through, and Sol, you spoke with her as well. Let's see if that gets through to the Times newspaper, because that was the Times newspaper journalist. We live in hope. But working with journalists has been a fantastic privilege, because I know how hard they have to work to get it past the editors. And I think TJN's role, or the role we've tried to claim.
It's not past the editors, it's past the lawyers of the...
Yeah, that as well. That's a good point. That's a very good point. TJN's role, I think it's one we carved out reasonably successfully, and I think the Panama Papers showed that, is we become the go-to organisation to comment and discuss things with journalists. I spend a lot of my time not actually giving a quote to a journalist, but talking through with journalists what this means in terms of the big picture and why the big picture matters. And without the fantastic feedback we get, for example, from the BEPS monitoring group, how could I possibly do that? You know, so let's continue to have this great fusion of cooperation between academics and journalists and campaigners. That's the way we'll change the world. So I do really want to thank all of you. It's been brilliant working with you. I'll come back in September. Meanwhile, Tax Justice Network will continue in very, very competent hands.